Does everyone know what time it is? Toilets to Titles is proud to present Title Time. And here's your hosts, Rich, George, and Jason.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Title Time. It's week 13 edition. I'm your host, Jason. And with me, as always, my brother from another mother, the guy in a dark room, George. Good morning, George.
Good morning. How are you doing this morning, Jason?
I am amped, man. I had an energy drink, and now I'm drinking coffee, and I have some soda over there, and it's not going to be good for the listeners. I can just tell you. You know, the problem is here in like my game. The game I want to watch starts at 4:00. I'm gonna get off this thing around 12:30. I'm gonna set my lineups, and I'm probably gonna crash hard. I feel bad for the family.
I mean, listen, I think we're all really looking forward to that 49ers Eagles game at 4:00. So, I mean, I can't wait as well.
Absolutely. And, unlike what the intro said, Rich had life happen and he might have to work some Sundays. But we got another guy with a fantastic beard to fill in. We've got Pete here, Bears fan Pete at T2T. Good morning, Pete.
Hey, good morning, fellows. How are we feeling today?
Bouncing off the walls.
All right.
How about you?
I too had an energy drink, so I'm kind of bouncing off the walls myself.
Yeah, we could tell, Pete. You're just all over the place up there. Let me tell
you. Before we get started, I do want to mention that, a couple of the things we got to go through. So joinrival.com/title tribe. We're coming towards the end of the season, but that doesn't mean you can stop gambling, you degenerates. No, have some fun on joinrival.com/title tribe. You can do those individual matchups. We'll probably do one later. I know we already had one in our chat earlier between Justin and Rich. But it's the kind of thing where you used to have, when you were at a bar and you made a bar bet with somebody, you'd have to catch them and make the transaction later. Well, now joinrival.com, Rival Fantasy Sports, allows you to do that one-on-one. Whoever scores the most points wins. They also have fantasy bingo, and they're getting ready to dabble for next year into season-long fantasy. So the thing with that is they match your first deposit up to $200, and if you sign up using the code Title Tribe, you get a $25 bonus, and it lets Rival know that we sent you. So do that for us, please. Also, I do want to mention our Gilded chat. If you guys aren't in our Gilded chat, we have over 200 people talking football all the time. We also we have like a lobby where you can talk about whatever you want. We do we have a little section for betting. I am going to have to bring Mom is in the area. So I'm going to talk about our Gilded chat, and then I'm going to bring Mom in, and he's putting a finger up saying he'll be a minute. So, but our Gilded chat allows you to talk football with us all the time. We are very available all the time for all of you. We're probably the podcast group that's the most available. So you can jump in and talk football at all times on Gilded. To join, you can hit any of us up on Twitter or go to toiletstitles@gmail.com. Send an email and we'll get you added as well. And that leads me to our Patreon, patreon.com/toiletstitles. We have a tier for every salary. So we start at $1.99 and work our way up from there. Some of the cool stuff you get is we give a waiver wire document out at Monday night versus Tuesday like everybody else. That gets your waiver wire info to you faster than everybody. Also, we do giveaways, and they're not all just for Patreons, but we do Patreon-specific giveaways. And most of our giveaways, you get bonus entries if you are a Patreon. For example, we did just give a $300 cooler away to Duarte, right? So he just won a $325 cooler. that Coach purchased, and Duarte's here in the chat, so he can tell you he won it. I'm sure it's in the mail, but I don't know if it's reached there yet because it was just given away on Tuesday, and U.S. Postal is kind of slow. But we do cool giveaways like that every week, as well as all kinds of different contests. So jump into patreon.com/toilets to titles. And now I'm going to bring Mom in.
And while you're bringing Mom in, right now we're doing a Patreon exclusive giveaway. We're going to be giving away 4 Yeti tumblers to 4 lucky patron members. So like you said, Jason, with our Patreon, there's a level for every salary, and we're constantly giving stuff away to the patrons.
And good morning, Justin.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing great. Well, okay.
Y'all know how awesome puppies are?
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
we love puppies.
That means that you
And
also
dogs
know.
too.
That also means that you also know how big of a pain puppies are.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I'm here. I made it.
So, all right, we before we get into, we've already got questions and a whole bunch of comments, and we're going to get to those in a minute. We have our normal question, which I think we're going to skip today because there's only a couple of decent games on the schedule. You all know which ones you want to watch, but George had an interesting question, and I want to get everybody's answer here. I'm going to start with Pete. So, college football, 4 teams, the playoffs. Pete, who's your 4 teams?
Number 1, Michigan. Number 2, let's see, I wrote it down here. Washington. Number 3, Florida State. And I believe Bama's going to get in by beating Georgia.
All right, top 4 there. Justin, you agree or disagree?
I'll agree because I don't really care.
and George, I know you disagree.
I do. I absolutely do, because I totally believe play on the field matters. And I can't put Alabama in over a Texas team because Texas beat Alabama by double digits in Alabama's house. So I'm going Michigan, Washington, FSU, Texas.
See, I listen, the way the NFL set up, play on the field matters. The way college football is set up, it doesn't. And part of the reason for that is because everybody has a vastly and wildly different schedule. There's not a lot of crossover teams that these teams play. Some teams play girls' schools. Some teams play girls' schools or like Division III teams or clown colleges, the tune-up games, and that's most of their schedule. So what I look for is who are the best 4 teams playing right now, who are the best 4. And I hate to say it because I'm a Florida guy, but FSU is not one of the best 4 teams playing right now. And it's not because their defense isn't amazing. It is. But their quarterback situation is terrible. Their offense isn't very good. And so for me, my top 4 is going to be Michigan, Washington, Texas, and Alabama. Now, if you wanted to make a case for Florida State and Alabama, that's fine because, look, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying about the head-to-head, but we're talking about an Alabama team that hadn't found itself the second week of the season, and Alabama is a better team than Texas right now. And I think Alabama, if you put them in, is probably going to the final and probably going to win the whole thing. So,
I mean,
Alabama
almost lose to Auburn.
Are we going to talk about FSU's almost losses to Clemson when they had their number 1 quarterback? Like, almost losses don't count. Miss me with that. So I know
that's why. If only these 2 teams actually played on the field, and I know the home team would have a significant advantage, especially if that home team was in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. That team would probably have an advantage, but instead they played in Alabama, and Texas gave Nick Saban his worst home loss in his entire coaching career.
Which is why I want Texas in and FSU out. That's all.
Now FSU
easy enough to
debate it. We're not going to debate it on here. That's why I said in the chat I didn't want to get into a debate about this.
We already started.
So
all right.
Let's just move on.
Okay. Justin had his finger up, so I don't know if he still wants to talk about it or not.
Not anymore.
Cool. He wants to talk about puppies.
Pete says, see you there. I mean, he's here. My son says second. You got to be faster on the trigger. Eli, you want to be first?
Yep.
Joe says, let's go. Well, yeah, Pete. It looks like Pete didn't have much going on because it's 7:32 and I made that bad boy. Boom! He's already here.
I was up early.
Hey, what's
All
that
right.
jersey, Pete?
Phillip Rivers.
Oh, never mind. Leave it off the screen.
I went in my
Jeez.
closet and I was like, hey, forgot I had this jersey.
Yeah, I would have too.
Look, keep buying him. He's got lots of kids. He needs it. Dustin says, "What's up, my favorite Sunday morning fellas? Need to pick 2 out of Sutton, Nico, T, or Garrett Wilson. Frank rules." You know what? Justin was rubbing his hands together. He's been dealing with puppies all morning. We're going to start with him.
Yeah, I forgot that you have that rule. I should have stayed stone cold still and not moved, but definitely Nico. I love Nico this week on any platform. So absolutely Nico. Probably, man.
Come on, say it.
Damn
Say
it! You're
it,
gonna make me say
Justin.
it. It's gonna be Sutton in this one, unfortunately. With
You
the
could have been
situations.
You could have been a statue, Justin, and you were getting this question first.
so it's Nico and Sutton this week.
George, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. It's Nico. Listen, I've been saying it all season long. I'm not about to stop now. Play Nico Collins until Nico Collins realizes he's Nico Collins. He's been an absolute stud for you. Denver's 20th against the pass. You got to play Nico Collins, and then, I mean, how can you not play Cortland Sutton the way that he's been playing this year? He's been phenomenal. 48 receptions, 560 yards, 8 touchdowns. He's averaging 13.3 points per game. You gotta play that.
Pete, you agree?
Yep. You got to go like this. Sutton and Nico got quarterbacks. Higgins and Wilson do not.
Yeah, I mean, look, T with Browning and Garrett Wilson with Tim Boyle. Now, I heard a stat that in college, Tim Boyle, 1 touchdown, 13 interceptions as a college quarterback. Do we know if he scored a touchdown in the NFL yet?
Listen, all I know is with those stats, I should have been a quarterback in college.
Yeah.
Well, it was the one.
I could do 1 touchdown for 13 interceptions. I could do that. That's nothing.
I don't know. I think that 1 touchdown held you back.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, no, I don't completely dislike the T. Higgins start this week because I don't think that Browning is completely incompetent. As a backup, I think that he's a decent fill-in option, but the matchup isn't horrible against Jacksonville as far as secondaries go. But the one thing that Jacksonville does do is they get to the quarterback. Even though they give up the 5th most points to fantasy quarterbacks, they also sack them a lot. And I think Browning being a backup kind of to Pete's point, he's not a starting quarterback. Like if they can get to him, he's going to get shaken early. So as much as I don't hate the matchup, I definitely hate the situation. That's the only reason I'm not on T.
Well, I also worry that like Browning probably can't support 2 wide receivers, and Chase is going to get his targets.
Yeah.
So Chase had an okay game, but 2 of those passes that he caught that were decent were tipped before they got to him. Like he had a good game in spite of Browning and not because of Browning. So I think it's tough when you have another alpha.
Yeah, and with that offensive line, you don't really have time to get to your second and third reads like T. Higgins is on most plays, especially being a backup quarterback.
Yeah, especially when you can't process like Joe Burrow did.
Right.
All right. Jerry Bagshaw. What's up, guys? Good morning, Jerry. How are you? And then the aforementioned Duarte, who, like I said, won the cooler.
Hey, Duarte, go back and check the episode from last night that George and Rich and myself did. We talked about you and brought up the bet that you and I have this week on Friendly Fire.
Yep.
All right. And, I mean, he shouldn't have to go back. He should be watching live.
He probably already did, but I just wanted to make sure he did.
Uncle Steve says, good morning, kids. Brian Robinson or Jaylen Warren? Who's moving? I'll take this one first. I'm going to go ahead and say Jaylen Warren because they're playing the Cardinals, and that should just be enough of an explanation. The Cardinals are awful against the run. I like both Najee and Jaylen this morning. I did see Justin nod. I'm going to say Pete is an absolute statue when he wants to be.
Yeah. I'm just gonna pretend like my screen freezes.
Pete's like, don't come to me. Don't come to me. Okay.
And then George's screen actually does freeze.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The
ahead,
thing
Justin.
about Brian Robinson is I feel like the Dolphins okay. I feel like the Commanders are going to need to try to keep that Dolphins offense off the field as much as possible. That means run. But after a couple of series where you're down by a touchdown or two, you're less likely to want to run. So for that reason, and the fact that I really do like the matchup against the Cardinals, as you said, I'm going to go with Warren. Even though they're splitting carries there, I think he's still, as far as opportunity goes, he's going to definitely have the higher floor between the two.
All right, and then we're gonna go with the statue Pete.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with him on this one. Just like that, Jalen Warren's gonna split times with Najee. But Brian, the Commanders are bad, and they're gonna go play Miami, and Miami's defense is a lot better. So Jalen Warren would be the guy you have to go to.
And George, do you agree or disagree?
Oh, well, I'm not going to say play Brian Robinson against my Dolphins. And the reason why is because the Dolphins are 6th in fewest fantasy points allowed to opposing running backs. They're just outside of week 1, where they got ran all over by the Chargers. Like that, their run defense has been absolutely stout. It's one of the best in the league. Also, the game script should be that the Commanders are behind, and when the Commanders are behind, you see a lot more of Gibson than you do of Robinson. So I'm not going to trust Brian Robinson against Miami in a game that honestly should not close. It should be a blowout.
Yeah, and I agree. Especially the other thing of note there is that Curtis Samuel is back, and so a lot of the receptions out of the backfield that Brian Robinson had been getting, if they're not going to Antonio Gibson, Curtis Samuel is eating up targets. I do want to mention, because Justin just posted in our chat over here, that Treylon Burks is playing. I don't know that I see anybody actually starting him, but you might need a desperation kind of start there. But he is actually in.
I very specifically only put that in for Coach because that is his Freddy Krueger, and this is the last week he can actually play Freddy Krueger, and he's been without him for the last several weeks. So if Coach is watching, he is actually playing today, so you can consider throwing him in there. Because in Frankenstein, if he's your Freddy Krueger, and if he even just gets one target, like all he needs is to register a stat on MFL, then he gets the average of the top 10 wide receivers for that week. So he is very startable in Frankenstein if he's your Freddy Krueger.
I have to say, Freddy Krueger was not as powerful as I had hoped.
I don't know.
He's as powerful as you hoped. The problem is you put him on a guy that's consistently a top 5 quarterback.
There are 3 teams.
That's the problem.
There are 3 teams that are either leading their division or very high in points for on the season that have been starting their Freddie every single week.
I think I'm one of them, but like George says, like it was hard to choose who to put him on. Coach put him on Treylon Burks, who'd been out most of this, like a large chunk of the season. I put him on Sam Howell, thinking, okay, he's going to start all year but not be great, and oftentimes he gets averaged down to the mean and not up to where I want it. So, it was a.
It's not that the card's powerful. It's just you screwed up and put him on a very good player that, to be honest, we didn't think would be very good at the start of the season. Like if you'd have put Freddy Krueger on Ezekiel Elliott, if you put him on Ezekiel Elliott and now you're getting a top 5 production from Ezekiel week in, week out, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, then we had a team that put him on Gainwell, and then somebody stole Gainwell in week 2 or 3 just so that he couldn't continue to play every week.
Well, see, that's the other challenge. You always have to have somebody at that position that's better than the person you put him on. It's not because, especially going at the beginning of the season, you think nobody's going to steal Sam Howell.
Or don't go against a vindictive opponent, because that guy did have better options than Gainwell.
Let's see. Let's see. Here we go. What am I? Let's see. Oh, I think we answered this one for him. We got it posted twice. Will T2T says, "What's up, fellas? Good morning, Will. Thank you for helping or trying to help, but that's a little backwards, Eli." Bobby Ham says, "Happy Sunday, family." And Black Body
I guess
Absorber says, "Good
real quick,
morning, everyone." Go ahead.
real quick, Jason. I think we need more smiley faces from Eli. We're not getting enough of those in the chat.
And then Krana Shaw says, "What's up, everybody? Thank you for the sticker, and I'll join the chat link very soon. Appreciate it, guys." Yeah, we got the sticker out, like we said, from last week, so that's cool. Let's see, game of the week, which we skipped this morning.
Yep, he wanted to know what we thought with the game of the week we were looking forward to.
Because he's my son. He's for sure. I'll tell you later, Eli, what the game of the week is. All right,
you'll know because it's the one that your daddy is cussing about the most later.
You know, nope. I don't cuss at the TV anymore. Okay. So Justin Herbert bounce back today or Jared Goff?
Is this a start sit question or just a?
Yeah, I'm gonna say Herbert versus Goff is a question.
I would say Justin Herbert only because they're playing New England. I know they're going to New England, but Justin Herbert, he's going to put up some big numbers. Like I said, they were going to have a hard time against the Ravens last week, and they did. But I expect them to come out throwing the ball.
Yeah, I agree with that. Justin Herbert over Jared Goff. George?
See, I think I would go Jared Goff over Herbert. The matchup against New Orleans funnels you to throw against them. Running against them is very difficult. He's had at least 25.1 fantasy points in 2 of his past 3 road games, he being Jared Goff. So you can play him on the road. I know that there was a time where the road and home split was a thing with him. The Saints also have key injuries on defense with Cam Jordan and Marshawn Lattimore either potentially not playing in Cam Jordan's case or Marshawn Lattimore on injured reserve. So they got a banged up defense. I'm going to go with Jared Goff here. He still had 22.2 fantasy points against the Packers, and that was with 3 fumbles. So I'm not expecting him to have that many fumbles or turnovers this week. I think you're going to get a good game from Jared Goff.
When the matchup's right and Jared Goff doesn't let the defense get to him, and they can run more of a hurry-up offense more often, then Goff is a solid pick. But he's so bipolar sometimes that if there's anybody that's a decent option on my team, I go the other way. And Justin Herbert is a good option against a good matchup. I know the Broncos have been much better the last 5 weeks, but even with that, there's still a good favorable matchup for quarterbacks. So I'm going to go with Justin Herbert on this one, but it is close.
All right. That's 3-1. We've got Black Body Absorber saying flex Downs or Deontay, both for PPR and half PPR, if that makes a difference. I'm going to start with Justin because Downs is on your team.
Yeah, and Downs is on a lot of my fantasy teams as well, and Downs has a good matchup this week, and he's kind of a must start for me in most situations this week in either format. But the Titans are also, they give up the 5th most points to fantasy wide receivers. If I remember right, Downs had a good game against them earlier this season. I'm pulling that up right now. Yeah, he had 15.7 PPR against them when they played in week 5, 6 catches for 97 yards. I think this week he's going to do something very comparable to that, but he's also probably going to get a touchdown. So you're looking at potentially 20 points for Downs. And then Deontay, much better this year, much better situation. Now that they have a new offensive coordinator. But even with that last week, and I mean, Kenny Pickett just isn't the answer. And Freiermuth might be moving forward because of how bad Pickett is. But until they straighten up that quarterback situation, I can't trust Deontay if I have another decent option out there, and Downs is more than a decent option.
George?
So Downs had 5 catches for 35 yards 35 yards week 12 against Tampa, which is not good. But if you look at more than just in yards, you realize he had 13 targets. So he's heavily involved in what the Colts are doing. No Jonathan Taylor for the next 3 to 5 weeks due to surgery he had on his thumb. I get Zach Moss is there, but I still think Minshew's going to lean a little bit more towards the pass, especially against the Titans, who are a pretty decent run defense team. I think Downs is in for a huge game. Week 5, as Justin mentioned, 6 catches for 97 yards on 6 targets. Titans are number 6 in most fantasy points allowed to opposing receivers. Yeah, it's for me, it's Downs.
Yeah, I agree with them. It's got to be Downs. They're playing Tennessee. Tennessee's got a lot of problems going on, injuries, and their defense isn't very good. With the injury to Jonathan Taylor, Downs should get a lot more targets.
Yeah, I struggle with this one because the Cardinals are as bad or worse against the pass than the Titans are. But Pickett's awful. I'm not saying Gardner Minshew's that much better. He's not. But I'm going to go ahead and, because it's PPR and half PPR, I'm going to say I am going to say Downs for me as well. So that's a sweep. All right. Cranoshaw says, oh, yeah, you know what? Somebody brought in a private chat that we missed the second half of this quarterback question. Moved on too quickly. So Kyler Murray or Lawrence, and then we're going to get back to that other question. And I'll go ahead and answer first. I got to go back and actually, you know what, George, you answer while I go look at my quarterback rankings.
Okay. For me, it's going to be Kyler Murray. The game should be a very good game against Pittsburgh. Steelers got a pretty good deal. I think Kyler Murray starting to round into form. I like what he's doing with his legs. I think this is going to be an actually pretty high scoring game, believe it or not. I'm going to go with the Cardinals. I'm going to go with Kyler Murray here.
Pete?
Yeah, Kyler Murray. He's going to be using his legs a lot. Whereas Trevor Lawrence, he's going to be playing the Bengals. Bengals defense isn't horrible. They play a little bit better. So, Kyler Murray would be the way to go with that.
All right, so I've got my rankings, but I'll let Justin close it out before I answer.
So it's tempting to go Murray because of the legs. It really is. I want to go Murray because of the legs, but the matchup is far more favorable with T-Law. And I went back and looked at the Steelers schedule to see how many not primarily, but how many quarterbacks they went up against that had the legs that they could use to score fantasy points with their legs. I hear the giggles. It's all good. The only one was in week 5 against Lamar, and that was their second best game against quarterbacks. And they held Lamar to less than 10 fantasy points that week. So I feel like the Steelers can be prepared to stop Murray's legs, cut his legs out from under him. And so we're going to go with the sweet locks of Lawrence for me this week.
And I'm going to make it difficult because it's going to end up being a tie for overall 2-2. I do have Lawrence ranked higher. And part of the reason there, again, it's the opponents, right? So playing against the Bengals, you think Jacksonville's going to have the ball a lot more. It looks like they've turned the corner passing over the last several weeks. Calvin Ridley's been involved. Zay Jones is there. Christian Kirk's still doing okay. Like they've turned the corner passing the ball. Trevor Lawrence has been good the last several weeks. And I do think, again, with the Bengals having a backup quarterback, they're going to be a lot of 3 and outs, and they're going to have a lot of opportunity there in order to go. Okay, so the next question. Sorry, find it again. Garrett Wilson or Rashee Rice? George, why don't you start with that one?
Yeah, so for me, this is going to be Rashee Rice. I don't want anything to do with Garrett Wilson, and I don't even know who's starting for quarterback for the Jets at this point. Listen, I think it's Tim Boyle. We talked about him. I could probably do 1 for 13 touchdown to interception ratio in college. But Rice finally had a breakout game week 12 against the Raiders. Sorry, Rich. 8 catches, 107 yards, and a touchdown. He had 10 targets. He's got 5 touchdowns on the season. They're starting to. Rice is starting to separate himself from the rest of the receiving core on Kansas City. I really like Rice this week. I would go with Rashee Rice here.
All right, Pete, you agree or disagree?
Oh, I agree with that one. The Chiefs are playing the Packers, and Packers secondary is not that great. So Tim Boyle, I mean, enough said.
That's pretty much all you had to answer is Tim Boyle. Enough said. Justin, agree?
So if we've learned anything about Pat Mahomes over the years, especially anytime he did not have Tyreek, if it was Rashee Rice last week, that means it's not going to be Rashee Rice this week. It's going to be Justin Watson or somebody else. But the problem is your only other option here is Garrett Wilson without a quarterback. So it's by default Rashee Rice, just like Pete said. I agree.
All right, and then we need one, and it's not good. Tutu Atwell, Josh Reynolds, Quentin Johnson, Justin Watson, and I'm just going to call him at Perry.
AT.
Can we call him at Perry, or should we do AT-AT? I'm a Star Wars nerd, so I'm going AT-AT.
Okay, I don't know what AT-AT is, so.
All right, Justin, since you don't know, you're going first. And if you don't know, you better call somebody.
So I wanted it to be A.T. Perry after he had that game a couple of weeks ago, and Michael Thomas is out for the season, and then it's like, come on, please be the guy, because we got to interview him down in Mobile, Alabama for the Senior Bowl. Unfortunately, he didn't show up, and so until we start to see some consistency there, we can't go with Perry. But I think long term, maybe dynasty, hold on to him. Again, I just said that maybe it's Justin Watson for Mahomes this week, and I didn't even see the second part of this question when I said that. I don't like any of the rest of these options anyway, and Justin Watson's getting targets. He's getting some deep targets as well. I mean, go ahead. You know what? I would say Watson just because he does have the best quarterback out of all of these guys, and we'll see what happens. But I also agree that these are not very good options.
I'll go next, and here's the thing. If I have these options, I'm taking an upshot. I think I am taking AT-AT, and it's because Rashid Shaheed is not playing today. Chris Olave is expected to start, but coming off that concussion, you never know. They don't have a lot of options there to throw to with Michael Thomas being out, so I'm going to take an upside shot at AT-AT. I think he's talented. Like you said, we talked to him down at the Senior Bowl. He impressed. And when he's been given opportunity, he's been impressive. So I'm going to start him just as an upside shot, and we'll see how it goes. Go ahead, Justin.
I was unaware that Shaheed was out, so I'm switching my vote. I'm with you. I agree.
All right, and then Pete, I see you nodding.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Perry because I did my little short on the Saints earlier this week.
And, yeah, you did.
They're pretty banged up, so somebody's gonna have to step up in this game for the Saints.
I'm hoping it's Taysom Hill because I got Taysom everywhere.
Yeah, that guy can do it all.
I mean, the other one is Tutu on here is interesting because with ever since the injuries to Cup, to Cooper Kupp, who we don't talk a lot about on here, which is why I can never remember his name because everybody's like, "Oh, I'm just starting Cooper Kupp." But with the injury to Kupp, like Tutu's been a decent name. But for me, I'm starting Perry because I think he's a good upside guy. Go ahead.
Speaking of Kupp, what was that?
What was what?
Pete, what was that? Take another drink. Look at that. That looks like a almost like one of those signs, like from Germany or something.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Thank you.
Steve, Uncle Steve wanted to come on here and be wrong and say Michigan, Washington, FSU, and Texas. So good to get your wrongness out there.
Hey, is the Harbaugh suspension over yet, or? Like, how's that shaking down? Is he going to be able to coach for the championship game if they make it?
Pretty sure he's going to be able to.
Yeah, I think it was only for the rest of the season.
Okay. It was 3 games. I remember that.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Sorry, I'm checking to see, my phone's buzzing, so I'm checking to see if there's updates to players. But no, it's just my wife sending me stuff, which she probably shouldn't do while I'm doing a show. All right,
She gets priority though, so we're good.
She does. Black Body Absorber says Stroud or Purdy 6-point touchdown. Pete, haven't gone to you first.
Yeah, I'm gonna go CJ Stroud. I mean, he's on fire. And the 49ers, that their offense is really good, and Purdy does well, but they're playing the Eagles, and where are they playing, in Philadelphia or San Francisco?
At Philadelphia.
At Philadelphia, yeah, it might be tough for Purdy there, going from the West Coast to the East Coast, and the Texans. Stroud looks really good. I mean, they just got a pretty great core of wide receivers there.
And Justin,
I'm gonna go with Purdy, and this is a close one for me. But I think the reason I'm gonna go with Purdy is I feel like Stroud, in his situation, there's not as much of a need for him to have a huge game, but with Purdy in their situation, not only is there a need, but he's got so many tools that have really good matchups this week. I really firmly believe that both of his core wide receivers are going to have big games. I believe that Kittle's going to have a huge game. I believe that CMC is going to have a really nice game out of the backfield. So if I'm going to believe all that, and I'm going to believe that a couple of them are going to get a touchdown or two at least, then I got to believe that Purdy's going to have a big game. So I'm going to say definitely Purdy for the floor. If you need a high ceiling, then go ahead and go with Stroud, because he is a much bigger playmaker in a nicer situation as far as like where he's playing at. But I'm going to go with Purdy if I'm just starting one of these in a vacuum.
And then George. Welcome back, George.
Yeah, so, by the way, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm going to go with Purdy. And the reason why is Denver's defense has held 7 quarterbacks in a row to fewer than 20 fantasy points. Those quarterbacks include Patrick Mahomes twice and Josh Allen. Stroud has played phenomenal this year, but this Denver defense, since like week 4 on, like after they got embarrassed and lost to Miami, like this team is not a Denver team. They've been playing a heck of a lot better. The Eagles are allowing the second most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks, and 4 quarterbacks in a row have scored at least 20.9 fantasy points. Philadelphia's defense just played 95 snaps in Week 12 against Buffalo, which is the most of any team this season. And this is also the 3rd game in 13 days for this Philadelphia defense. So and the 49ers are off a bye. They haven't played in almost 2 weeks. I'm going to go with Brock Purdy here. I think Brock Purdy's going to have a phenomenal game this week.
That's what I meant to say, just not so many words.
It's going to be tough because here's the thing. I have to go by my rankings, and my rankings have Stroud above Purdy. I get what you're saying about Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, but I'm going to say what shouldn't be controversial, but might be, but CJ Stroud has been better than both of those quarterbacks for fantasy all season long. I don't care what Denver did against Mahomes. A few teams have done that against Mahomes this year. He struggled to get over 21 fantasy or 25 fantasy points. I can't remember he's not that great this year. He hasn't paid off on his 3rd round return. So like comparing Stroud, who's been great for fantasy, to Mahomes, who hasn't, to me is just like looking at last year's stats and trying to project them to this year. We all know Allen has struggled, especially with turnovers. It's not like that's not a super surprise. So for me, I'm going to take Stroud, but I have him basically back to back with Mahomes actually in between the two. So I'm going to take Stroud over Purdy, and unfortunately that's 2-2 for everybody. So you're just going to have to make the decision on your team.
Trust your gut.
And trust your gut based off what you heard here. Will T2T says, or actually, you know what can happen is Will and those guys that are in the team can jump in if they wanted to as well and break the tie on Stroud Purdy if that's how you want to go. Duarte 5656 says Devon Achane or Raheem Mostert for the Dolphins. And normally I would let George go first because it's a Dolphins question, but you know what? Nope, he's a 49ers fan now. I'm going to go ahead and go first on this one. I'm going to go first on this one, and I'm just going to say I'm going to be a little cheating on this. If you are going, if your projections are you're going to lose, and you need an upside play, if you're going to lose by a lot, I would start Achane. If you're close, if it's close or you're ahead, I would play Raheem Mostert. Because I think Mostert's going to get you a decent amount of points, but I think Achane has the higher ceiling. And now George was shaking his head, so go ahead, bud.
Yeah, no, the correct answer is going to be Raheem Mostert. And the reason why is Mike McDaniels is going to be very conservative with Devon Achane. His first game back after an injury where he injured it the last game he played after coming back from a knee injury and being placed on IR. So he was on IR, played a few snaps, got injured again, out, missed last week, first game back. The Dolphins are not going to need Devon Achane to beat this Washington Commanders team. You're going to see a lot of Raheem Mostert. You're going to see Jeff Wald. Devon Achane will get some carries, but I don't think he's going to have a huge. They're not going to need him for this game. They need him for the end of the season and into January and whatnot. They're not going to need him for this game. I don't expect to see him get a whole lot of touches at all.
Pete.
Yeah, I agree with George on this one. They're not going to risk Achane getting another severe injury. They're going to sit him. It should be an easy win for them against the Commanders, but I don't know, any given Sunday. So,
yeah. So you guys allow me to come on here for my amazing analysis, right? So here's what I have for you, Duarte. Down there in the comments, you forgot to put a space between Mostert and Dolphins, and what that does is it merges it together into TD for touchdown. So I think you Freudian slipped yourself right into answering your own question. It's the TDs from Mostert this week. So we're going to go with Raheem Mostert on this one.
George, can I ask you a question? And listen, this is just this. I'm not arguing. It's 3-1. I do want to ask you though, how many carries do you think Achane gets?
Total 5.
Okay. With 8, he had 101 and how many touchdowns? I'm just saying that's the only reason why I say he's got the upside, because anytime he touches the ball,
I absolutely get that, but I'm not going to sit here and say he can be that efficient on 5 to 8 carries every single week he plays. It's just,
but he can't against the Commanders. Anyway, so we're again. It was 3-1. And look, I'm arguing, but I kind of agree, right? That's why I said if you don't need a blow the door off type of game, I think Mostert's your guy. Will T2T, I think I'm buying at Pete All Dallas merch for Christmas. Well,
I'll take it. I'll hang
it. Everybody, you're in Chicago. You're up in Illinois, right, Pete?
Well, I'm in Indiana, right on the border.
Okay. So you're up there in flyover country like Justin is. But my point is, you need to stay warm in the winter. So Dallas merch to burn is easy enough.
Man, Pete, you know what? So these puppies that I got were up in Warsaw. So I was up in close to your area, and I had the message ready to roll. I was going to have you meet me for lunch, and then I realized I didn't want to leave the puppies in the car during lunch. But it's like I never get up there in that area. But we almost made it happen.
Guys, here's a gross one. Actually, I do want to just shout out Joe for watching us. And saying great college games yesterday, and yeah, absolutely was. I didn't watch any of them. I was at Disney, but still great games.
Joe's the guy you want to ask your college questions to for sure.
Hey Joe, post in here who your top 4 teams are who should make the college football playoffs, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I'd appreciate it. Dustin says Garrett or T, different league. Okay, so gross quarterback situation and fight. Justin's moving the most. Justin, you go first.
Can you opt out? No. I guess ultimately I'm going to go with Garrett. I'm going to go with Garrett Wilson here because, like I said, I don't despise the situation for T. Higgins. I'm just worried about them getting to Browning and then Browning not having time to really go through his progressions. At least with Garrett, he's the first option every time. So there's not a need for progressions for the backup. Yeah, I'm going to go with Garrett. You give him a screen pass and it could break for a 60-yard touchdown. So like he's talented enough. Let's go for it, especially in PPR. He's going to get more opportunities. So I'm going to roll with Garrett, but I don't like it.
If I had to guess what's going on, George opted out of this question.
Can I opt out? You absolutely can. Just remove yourself from the stream. You don't have to answer the question.
I'm pretty proud of myself for catching exactly what happened there. I have to say.
Yeah, because with George, you never know.
yeah, George. It could have just been he had to go to the bathroom, but I saw him down there still in the screen, so I knew. But you know what? You can't opt out, George. You can't specifically opt out. So go ahead.
Oh man, I'm gonna go with Garrett Wilson. At least I know he's going to be the number one option in the passing offense for a very, very bad New York Jets team. I don't want to trust T. Higgins coming back from injury, having to rely on Browning. See, Justin just did the same thing I did. I'm telling you, it's a phenomenal move.
Well, he already answered it.
Yeah, but he's seen the next question. He didn't want to answer that one either. But no, for me, it's going to be Garrett Wilson. I don't like either of these options, but I'll take the number one on a bad offense versus the number two on a bad offense.
And Pete.
Yeah, I was going to go T, but now that what you guys said, just because Garrett is the number one, I would go Garrett then. Yeah, I was going to go T. But then, you guys changed my mind. So good job.
All right. That's 3-0. And you know how you truly opt out is you get to be the host and you go on to the next question. Woody the Badger says Ridley or Puka. Just to be clear, I'd be Garrett Wilson as well. So, but I do get to opt out whenever I feel like it because I'm the host and I can move on. Woody the Badger says Ridley or Puka full PPR. And because I opted out of the last question, I'm going to go ahead and take this question. As gross as it sounded a couple of weeks ago, I am going to take Calvin Ridley here. The over-under is about the same, but their implied point total is 4 or 5 points higher than the Rams against the Browns. And then obviously it's the Browns. They're like number 2 against wide receivers, if I'm reading this right. And the Bengals aren't that good. And also, as I mentioned earlier, the Bengals bad offense giving Jacksonville the ball a lot more often. I am going to take Calvin Ridley, which sounds like if we had this question 3 weeks ago, completely different answers. So I see Justin with his puppy over there nodding. So I'm going to go ahead and go Justin before he poops in Justin's lap.
Yeah, no, the puppies were trying to tear down the Christmas tree, and my wife is busy, so may as well introduce them. So we have this one is Edgar Allan Pug. So, dark black like the Raven, and then this one is like on Men in Black. He looks like Frank. So this is Frank the Stank, as in Frankenstank. So yeah, so that's these are my new little buddies, I guess, for the rest of their lives. But I'm going to go with Ridley as well. I'm in a league where you start 4 wide receivers, and I'm benching Puka. So you have to start 4. Like, it's not a flex thing. And as a matter of fact, the league is called DGAF. Don't get any flex. So So I'm starting Ridley, and I'm benching Puka in that league just because of the matchup, just because of the inconsistencies right now in the passing game. I mean, last week, none of the wide receivers scored a touchdown, but Stafford was still able to find a way to score 4 touchdowns. So he is able to move the ball around and find the right open man. I don't think that the wide receivers are going to be able to get open a heck of a lot this week, and he's going to be more than comfortable to check it down and throw it to other guys. So give me Ridley as well.
George.
So who knew that the key to unlocking Calvin Ridley was playing with Zay Jones? Like I didn't know that, but it is absolutely the case. So when Zay Jones is on the field, Calvin Ridley is unbelievable. The 5 games Zay Jones has played this year were week 1, week 2, week 5, week 11, and week 12. Ridley scored at least 20.6 PPR points in 4 of those outings, including the last 2 in a row. Last 2 outings against the Titans and the Texans, Ridley has 12 catches, 192 yards, and 3 touchdowns on 15 targets. He is absolutely a must start pretty much at this point. And it's all thanks to Zay Jones. Like, I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable what Zay Jones does for Calvin Ridley on the field.
I'm pretty sure Calvin actually dropped another touchdown last week too. It could have been an even bigger game. Pete,
Yep.
You agree?
Yep.
Not about dropping the touchdown, but just
No,
like
Pete's
like,
he dropped the touchdown.
Yeah, he totally dropped it.
Pete's like, no, he didn't drop it.
I watched him. I watched him drop it. What are you talking about? Yeah, absolutely, I agree.
Grana says, actually, you know what? I feel like I mispronounce this every time I say it, kind of like H-A-N. So if there's a way that you can get me the actual pronunciation so I say it right, I'd appreciate it, especially because you're such a active member. But should I pick up Roschon Johnson for next week? We'll start with Pete because Pete's the Bears fan.
Yeah, so here's the deal with that. It looks like Roschon Johnson's going to be heavily favored in the backfield. If you watched the game last week, Herbert just wasn't on the field. He just completely disappeared from the offense. I'm not sure why. He wasn't injured. And Roschon Johnson, you know, he did a pretty good job picking up the slack, and the Bears are still without Deonta Foreman. Not even sure when he's going to be back. I'm hoping he's going to be back next week, but it looks like they're gonna keep going to Roschon Johnson on this.
So here's the thing. He's potentially a starting running back in this league. So yes, you should pick him up. But however, the schedule upcoming is not favorable for running backs for them. So you've got the Lions, which are a good run defense, the Browns, which are they've softened, but they're still a good run defense. And then you finally get the Cardinals before they play the Falcons, which is a decent run defense. So yes, I pick him up because he's a starter in this league, and you might need a running back, or he's potentially going to be a starter in this league. But the next 2 weeks that they actually play, it's not favorable for a running back. So just temper your expectations those 2 weeks. However, if you make it to the round where they're playing the Cardinals, you've hit playoff gold.
Yeah.
Anything from Justin or George?
I mean, this kind of question is still always predicated to who are you dropping to get him. But for the most part, yes, you're probably picking him up because, like you guys said, he's a starting running back, or there's at least a good opportunity to be a starting running back. So you kind of have to. But yeah, I'm not. I had a lot of shares of him starting off because he is the most talented running back in that backfield, in my opinion. But I don't coach the team, and I can't throw him out there to prove it. So until they can throw him out there more to prove it, like we can't trust to start him.
All right, and then I could just say chronic if that helps, and that absolutely helps. So I'm going to say chronic.
That absolutely helps.
It just makes it easier. Eli, because George had a comment about the amount of smileys, My son decided to make a bunch of smileys, so thank you, Eli. Asking ye shall receive. Fly, Nelly, fly. Josh Downs, D Hop, Jaden Reed, or Pickens. Need two. Nobody's moving. Nobody wants to answer, huh? Go ahead, George.
Well, yeah. So I talked about Josh Downs earlier. Like for me, he's an absolute must start this week. So I'm in the process of elimination. I'm going Josh Downs. Anybody here disagree on Josh Downs, or are we all in agreement he's going to start? Okay, we just got to narrow, so we can narrow down to D Hop, Jaden Reed, or Pickens. For me, I'm eliminating Pickens right away. I don't want to deal with the Steelers' offense right now if I don't have to, outside of the running backs. Jaden's great. DeAndre Hopkins can go for a 3-touchdown game at any given week. I'm leading Jaden Reed this week over D Hop. I think I would go Jaden Reed here. They're going to have to score to try to keep up with the Chiefs. The slot wide receiver is the receiver that can beat the Chiefs. It's not going to be any of their outside wide receivers, so it's not going to be Christian Watson. I think Jaden Reed. It's not going to be Romeo Doubs. It's going to be Jaden Reed out of the slot. I think he's the play here.
Justin, you were going to talk, so I'll let you go next.
DeAndre Hopkins against the Colts. D-Hop was one of the options here, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Against the Colts in week 5, he had 8 catches for 140 yards. That was the first week that Will Levis came in, and they exploited a Colts defense that up to that point had not been exploited in the secondary. The Colts secondary relatively has been really good most of the season, but since that game, they've had some down games, and I think that that they exploited something in that secondary that other teams have been able to pick up on. But at the same time, they also didn't have a lot of film on Will Levis, other teams anyway, as far as at the NFL level. So Will Levis obviously has not played as aggressively well since then. So actually, wait a minute. Am I thinking of another game? I might be thinking.
I don't know. Are you?
Yeah, because he had. Yeah, no, well, yeah, I don't know. No, that was Atlanta. That they blew up. But anyway, he still had 8 catches for 140 yards against the Colts, and that was the game that it wasn't Will Levis, but it was the game that the Colts started to get a little bit exploited in that secondary. I do remember that. I'm still kind of scared about DeAndre Hopkins in this against the Colts. So because of the other options, I think I'm definitely going Josh Downs. I'd probably go D-Hop as well.
All right, Pete?
I go D-Hop over Jaden Reed. I mean, they're playing, the Packers are playing the Chiefs. I know they're at home, but we don't know what Jordan Love we're going to get, and this isn't the Chiefs of last year, and they've had some bad games, but D-Hop he's always going to have the higher upside, in my opinion.
Man, this makes it hard because I was on the Jaden Reed train, but now it's going to be 2-2, and it was close enough for me not to want to tie it. But man, they've been manufacturing touches for Jaden Reed. He's been carrying the ball. He's been their best wide receiver. I think Doubs or Watson's going to be taken away by Snead, and that's going to leave Reed open more often than not. So I will lean D-Hop here because I don't want the 2-2 tie, but I really like Reed as a play this week. So I'm going to say it's 3-1 DeAndre Hopkins, but Jalen Reed's not a bad play either. But we all agree as far as Josh Downs. So, Black Body Absorber, do you like rostering 2 or more defenses heading into the playoffs or depth at running back? It really depends on your depth at running back and which defenses. I like blocking defenses from your opponent, who's if any of your opponents in the playoffs are streaming defenses, which is something that is still happening. But here's the thing: if you have a high value handcuff, I wouldn't drop him for a defense because you never know when a player. For example, if Tony Pollard goes down, Rico Dowdle is a potential winner. He looks good, and so if there happens to be an injury over the next couple of weeks with Tony Pollard, and you have Rico Dowdle, I wouldn't drop him for a second defense. So a lot of this depends on the running back and depends on the defense. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah, I agree.
All right.
Yeah, like our home league right now, Jason. I'm rostering 2 defenses, and I'm hurting at running back, but I'm not dropping either defense because it's the Cowboys and the Ravens, the number 1 and the number 2 defense in fantasy right now. So there's no way I'm dropping either one of them. So it really just depends on which 2 defenses you're planning on rostering.
Yeah,
I
that's
think that
fair.
also plays. I think that also plays a huge factor into holding 2 defenses or going for a high upside handcuff. Because I'm all on board. Do the handcuff over a defense any day, except if you have the number 1 and number 2 defense in fantasy right now.
I'd even throw Cleveland in there, which is probably number 3.
Yeah,
because if you have one of those 3 or 2 of those 3, like I wouldn't drop any of those because I think any given week those are big point. You've seen several weeks from each of those where their defense has been way better than your flex option and as far as point goes. So like I get it. If it's one of these, the other issue with it for me is like I have been streaming in that league a defense every week, and I've been there's just a lot of bad teams this year, right? There's like it's because of quarterback injuries. So almost every week there's a handful of teams you can you can flex against, against the Brownings of the world, against Cleveland, who's starting Joe Flacco for the first week, against Pete called the timeout. I don't know if he remembers. He can take his video down, but that's okay.
Yes, and I had agreed with Jason initially, but I also agree with George because in one of the rival leagues, you start 2 defenses, and somebody had dropped the Ravens defense this week because they're on bye, and you only get three bench spots, so you don't really have the bench spot spaces for it. So I went ahead and picked up the Ravens today, or yesterday. So now I have 4 defenses in that one, and 3 of them are top tier defenses, and I'll be dropping the other one after this week. But yeah, I guess it does depend on the situation.
All right, and Jerry Bagshaw says dubs or no. Oh, let me go back to this. If you have a specific defense and specific running back, I'd love to actually give you like an answer on a specific situation versus because like we're talking like at the 10,000 foot level where like we have time to drill down into the more specifics, especially on Gilded, where we can answer that question when we're not up against. I mean, we have like an hour and we still have a bunch of questions, but I'm sure we could get to it today. But it's also the type of fun question we can get to in our Gilded chat. Just a plug.
Yeah.
Jerry Bagshaw says dubs or Noah Brown in PPR. Go ahead, Justin.
Noah Brown. That's it.
George usually has a lot more words than that. Go ahead.
Dubs.
Ooh. That's up to you to say the words, Jason.
I would have said more, but he said I normally say more than that, so I had to go with less than that.
Look, Dubs is a guy who gets a bunch of touchdowns that I worry about. I mentioned it a couple of questions ago. I think Dubs is going to get the Snead treatment. Snead has played great for the Kansas City Chiefs. And the Chiefs are a much more difficult matchup. I know the Broncos have been better as of late, but Kansas City's been good all year. So for me, I think I'm putting Noah Brown on the field, especially with their tight end being out, which will run us into the next one of the questions coming up. But George, if you want to make a case besides the 2 words, up to you. Well, I think George froze. So
I think he just doesn't want to give a case. He doesn't have a case. It's Noah Brown.
All right. I think he just moved. George, you back?
I'm back. I'm here.
All right. So we've moved on to the next question. I'm going to let George go first since he's moving around again. Brandon Williams, good morning, fellas. Would anyone start Henry over Bijan, Mostert, and Kyron Williams?
Last week I said start Kyron, and it was actually Brandon Williams' question. If you guys recall, I said start Kyron Williams. I would start Kyron Williams over Bijan. And Bijan went out and had a fantastic day. But Kyron Williams went out and had a phenomenal day. So I aboard the Kyron Williams train. But this week, based upon the matchups, I think I'm going Henry over Kyron Williams. I want to play Bijan. I want to play Mostert. I'm not a huge fan of the match week for Kyron Williams. The Browns are they're an absolute beast of a defense, especially against the run. I'm going to fade Kyron Williams this week. I'll Derrick Henry against Justin's Colts over Williams.
Justin, you've got a team in this with Derrick Henry playing your Colts. How's Derrick Henry been against the Colts this year?
Not very good, actually. The Colts, by Derrick Henry standards especially, the Colts kind of shut him down in Week 5. I am seeing that Tyjae Spears still is not quite 100%. I don't know. We don't know for sure if he's even going to play this week or not. Off of, I believe it was a concussion that he had last week, but if he does play, there's a chance he might see minimal opportunity. That was a part of why the Colts did so well against Henry last time, was because Tyjae actually had a pretty solid game. And that's going to happen every time I have a player that I really like that plays for another team. They're going to do really well against the Colts. But if he's not playing much, then Henry does have better opportunity this week. I think I'm probably still going to go with Bijan, Kyron, and Mostert though over Derrick Henry, because the Colts do tend to play that heavy defense and a lot of running, which keeps the other offense off of the field more when they play these tougher divisional matchups, and the other team also has a good running game. That's just that they like to play that gritty style football. So I can see Henry with minimal opportunities this week.
All right, so we've got one sit Kyron, one sit Derrick Henry. Pete, back from your timeout. Who you got?
Yeah, I'm gonna start Kyron over Henry. Cleveland, I know Cleveland's defense is really good, and the Browns got a nice record, but their quarterback situation is going to be a big issue. Their offense isn't going to be on the field that much. So Kyron Williams should get a lot more touches, and he should be good.
You know, they're starting Flacco, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you laugh. I think Flacco looked okay last year with the Jets. I mean, he obviously looked better than Zach Wilson or Tim Boyle this year. Like, I was surprised they didn't give Flacco a call and have him come on up to New York when Aaron went down.
Well, that's because Cleveland knew the visitation times at the nursing home.
That's true. It's true. I'm going to go out on a limb and say sit Mostert here, but that doesn't, like, as far as the question goes, that just means, and George just gave me that face, but okay, so I'm going to sit Mostert here, and I am going to start Henry, Bijan, and Kyron. I like Kyron this week. George is giving me a face.
I think because of that, we need to sit Jason.
I agree. No, you're not allowed to come back yet. You're still in timeout.
Why did we lose Justin? Oh, Justin got himself away. All right, he's probably dealing with dog issues. All right, Brandon Williams, Cade Otton, or Brevin Jordan this week?
Gonna go Cade Otton. It's simple. They're playing the Panthers.
Yeah, the one spot where the Panthers are actually okay is against tight ends. I think they're 8th, if I'm reading this right. Like I'm counting from the bottom because I didn't put numbers on my list. But So the one spot they've been decent against is against tight ends, but that's because you can do everything else against them. But I don't want to chance Brevin Jordan because their number one tight end is hurt, and then we're just throwing somebody into that spot. Like I think Noah Brown's going to get those catches and not Brevin Jordan. But George, do you agree with me and Pete?
Yeah, it's K. Dotton. 6 tight ends against Carolina have scored at least 8.1 PPR points on the season. So that does bode well for K. Dotton, who's scored at least 8.5 PPR points in 5 of his past 6 games. He's only scored double-digit PPR points 3 times this season. So keep that in mind. He's not going to go out and have a huge week, but I think his floor is a lot safer than Brevin Jordan just because he's replacing Dalton Schultz. Like Brevin Jordan is not a good tight end.
Justin?
Yeah, so I'm glad that you cleared that up for me because I missed the first part of this and I was actively seeking the player named Cotton. So, yeah, I'm glad you cleared that up for me. It's definitely K. Dotton for me as well. I don't want to start a backup tight end that just happens to be starting with the tight end landscape field being what it is. You occasionally have your rare occurrences, like we all kind of knew Trey McBride was going to be a thing because of his pedigree, but a guy like Brevin Jordan just doesn't have that pedigree. So I'm going to go with K. Dotton as well.
I guess my other question would be is if Juwan Johnson is out there, take a look to see if Juwan Johnson is out there. I think he's a decent start with New Orleans having issues at wide receiver.
Yeah, and Taysom Hill's going to be playing a lot more at the wideout spot too. So,
yep.
Brandon Williams. Now this one's. Go ahead, George.
I was just going to say best all-around football player in the NFL, Taysom Hill.
Disagree, but fine. Brandon Williams says Brevin or Everett in another league. Well, I'm on the never Everett stance, so I guess I'll say Brevin Jordan. Because I know you guys are going to outvote me, and it's not going to matter. Go ahead, Justin.
Well, I mean, Everett does have a much tougher matchup this week. I know it's New England, and it sounds like that would be a good matchup, but they're actually 5th against tight ends in fantasy football. And Everett just had a touchdown last week, which means if you go by the law of averages, means he probably won't get one for a few more weeks. but I still think I'm going to probably go with Everett for the same reasons that I said K. Dotton in the last one. I think K. Dotton is probably better than Everett if I had to choose one of those two. But so that makes this one a closer call. But I'm still going with the guy that's a starting tight end that's already an active part of the offense, albeit not very active. But I'm going to go with Everett in this one.
George.
So one of my favorite stats about revenge is that the Chargers have had a tight end score at least 10.8 PPR points in 5 of the past 7 games, with Everett hitting that mark 3 times over the span, including Week 12 against Baltimore, where he got 4 passes for 43 yards and a touchdown on 4 targets. New England, as you guys said, not an easy matchup. They give up the 5th fewest fantasy points to tight ends. But, I mean, we just got done talking about how we're not trusting a backup tight end to fill in and expect him to get the same role as the starter. I cannot then immediately turn around and say, oh, yeah, go with Brevin Jordan. I can't do it. For me, it's.
Yep, I agree with George on that one.
All right, cool. I can stick with my never Everett, and but you guys absolutely told him he should play him. So we did it. Black body absorber. Kyler Murray or Jared Goff. I need upside. Thanks, fellas. Justin, go ahead.
Yeah, it's Kyler if you need upside because Goff offers little upside. He's got the great offense around him, and when he is clicking, he's clicking. But just like I said earlier in the show, when he's bad, he's really, really bad. So if you need that upside, you got Kyler Murray with the legs. Like I said earlier, I think that they could shut down those legs, but he does offer the upside of the legs. So give me Kyler if you really need the upside.
Yeah, I would go Kyler with the upside as well. If you watch the last 2 games with Goff against the Bears, even though they won that game, Goff has just been playing terrible. And then once again, the Thanksgiving game against the Packers, he's showing why the Rams traded him and, draft Stafford. This guy's having back end blues at the end of the season, like last year. So.
Well, so Goff hasn't been great for the NFL, but George pointed out he's been pretty decent for fantasy football. So I'm going to let George go next.
Yeah, for me, it's Goff. I think he's got the safer floor, and yeah, he played horrible against the Packers for NFL purposes because he had 3 fumbles. But even with the 3 fumbles, he still had 2.2 fantasy points against the Packers on Thanksgiving Day. Like, I don't care how bad he's playing for NFL football. All I care about is his fantasy points. And he posted 332 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's with 3 fumbles. He's still, again, 22 fantasy points. I'll take that every single time. New Orleans is down 2 of its best players on defense, 1 in the secondary and 1 on the defensive line. So hopefully there won't be as much pressure on Jared Goff. I'm taking Goff in this matchup. I think he's going to outscore Kyler Murray.
So you said something as a tell there, George. You said Goff has a better floor, but
He does.
Black Body Absorber is saying he needs upside. And while I do agree that Goff has the better floor, of the 2 who could have an explosion because of his running ability, I think it's Kyler. Now, he could also very much have the bottom drop out, so it's a risk play. But if you need upside, I think Kyler has the upside while Goff has the floor. So for me and the other 2 boys,
I demand satisfaction.
I challenge you to a duel.
I shan't mince words with you for long. I am challenging you, sir, to a duel.
Sir, your challenge is accepted.
So I will take Goff outscores Kyler Murray this week against any of you 3 or all of you 3.
who's taking it?
I mean, I'll take it for sure because, I don't agree with them.
Yeah, I mean, look, I guess I'll take it. It's not what I was saying. I just said there could have a bottom out, but that's not the question here. This isn't a head-to-head. This is who has the upside and
if this question was head-to-head, I would have a much more difficult time answering the question.
I understand that.
Still lean Kyler.
I understand that. I understand he needs the upside, but it doesn't matter who has the highest. The guy's not going to outscore the other option. Then he clearly doesn't have the upside.
He does have the upside.
In other words, Black Body Absorber, what he's saying is he understands your question. He just wants to answer a different one.
He just refuses to. He's a politician. He just refusing to answer the actual question.
Go ahead and play the guy that's going to get you fewer points and see how that.
What colors? What color's the sky? I want to talk about the
Kyler's going to outscore Goff anyway, straight up. So go ahead and send it to me on Rival. I'll accept that one.
All right, Mini Jordan 718 full PPR. Choose a wide receiver, flex, and tight end. Watson, Dubs, Samuel. So let's do wide receiver first. Watson, Dubs, or Curtis Samuel. George.
No. It's a wide receiver, a flex,
and a tight end. Well, let's choose a wide receiver first because we have to have a wide receiver.
Gotcha.
And then we can talk about the flex and the tight end.
Gotcha.
So, George, go ahead.
I'm doing a rival challenge right now.
Okay.
Is
Justin,
Taysom listed as a wide receiver?
No, he's listed as a tight end, but he could be a flex. So
okay,
let's not give it away.
Oh man, so this one's tough. I'm gonna need a little bit of time here.
All right, Pete, go ahead.
Just off the top of my head, I'm going to go Watson, wide receiver, flex. I'll go Mixon, and then tight end. Taysom.
So I can't say Watson's been good the last 2 weeks. So even though he's either Watson or Dubs is going to get the Snead treatment, and you don't know which one. I'm going to say Watson. I can't do Samuels because they pass the ball. They mix the ball around too much. And while I think he might have a decent game, you never know if it's going to be Dotson or McLaurin or running back or tight end, Logan Thomas. So I'm going to say Watson. And then for my 2, I'm going to go ahead and say Taysom and Freiermuth. I think their offense is limited, and it's not like he was great out of the backfield with Burrows there. He just had volume. Well, that volume's going away because they're not getting first downs. So I'm going to go ahead and say Freiermuth is my tight end, and Taysom's going to be my flex. And now I've given both of you we've given both of you guys time.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Watson at wide receiver. But my flex has to be a running back in this situation. It's going to be Mixon. Like as big of a game as I think Taysom's going to have, leave Taysom in my tight end spot there. But I don't see a world where Muth is going to have another huge game like he did last week, enough to be able to outscore a starting running back that's going to get the ball consistently with Browning at quarterback. I mean, I'm sure it probably happened last week, but that was an awful lot of targets and catches for a guy that's probably not going to get that many this week. Like that's not sustainable, is what I'm trying to say, I guess. So give me Mixon in my flex and Taysom at tight end. This is a great question.
So I'm going to go with Curtis Samuel, actually, at wide receiver. He's coming off a game where he had 9 catches for 100 yards against Dallas for 19 PPR points on 20 targets. Miami is really good. With Jalen Ramsey, he's going to take away the number 1, so he'll be covering most of the time. He'll be covering Terry McLaurin. Jahan Dotson is the other outside wide receiver. He'll be seeing Xavier Howard, who Xavier Howard is not what he once was, but he's still a better than average cornerback. That's going to leave Kader Kohu covering Curtis Samuel in the slot. Kohu is a decent receiver, but cornerback, but he's also an undrafted second-year cornerback. Curtis Samuel is also going to be involved in the run game. I like the odds that Curtis Samuel is going to outscore Christian Watson, who looked great the last game he played, 5 catches for 94 yards and 7 targets. But the problem is they're playing the Chiefs, and the Chiefs have been absolutely amazing against opposing wide receiver ones. And Christian Watson is the wide receiver 1 for Green Bay. Wide receiver ones do not score. They shut them down all the time. They've done it all season. So I'm going to go with Curtis Samuel for the wide receiver. The flex, I'm going to go with Mixon. I still believe volume is king in this league. I like A-Chain, don't get me wrong, but I don't think he's going to have a big game. I don't think they're going to use him as much. They're not going to need to use him as much to beat Washington. And as far as the tight end goes, I love Taysom Hill. I'm a Taysom Hill guy, but I'm going to go with Freiermuth.
I will just say that I know I think 3 of y'all picked Mixon. I have Mixon in the home league, George. I think
he's
either
been
Taysom,
bad.
Either Taysom or Freiermuth. He was okay with Burrows, right? He had finally turned the corner, and that was mostly based off receptions. 8 points last week. I think both Taysom and Freiermuth can top that this week. So, I also think they're going to be down a decent amount against Jacksonville this week too. So, but go ahead, Justin. You got your finger up.
I thought you were done talking about that one. This is unrelated to that question.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, well, it goes back to the DeAndre Hopkins question, just so that you know. The Colts defensive back, Juju Brents, also known as Julius Brents, is out again this week. I believe it's going to make 3 weeks in a row that he's been out, but they were kind of hoping that he would be back this week. Without Julius Brents, we have guys like Jalen Jones that are going to be trying to cover D-Hop and the rest of that gang, and Treylon Burks is back, who has some speed too. So I can see that secondary having some issues. I know Kenny Moore is mostly going to be on D-Hop, but Kenny Moore pretty much stays on one side of the field. So if they move D-Hop around very much, he could have some really big plays this week.
And that rolls into Fly Nelly Fly. He missed our answer when we gave it. So
okay.
3 out of the 4 of us did say Downs and D-Hop, with George saying Downs and Jaden Reed. So because you missed it, we wanted to bring that back up. Earlier on, my son said, "Where did George go?" He went to the bathroom. And Eli said, "Do I get priority to message you now?" Of course you do. You're my son. Go ahead, George.
Do not talk to him face to face, though. Only message.
Only messages. That's how we communicate at home here.
Yeah.
We sit on the couch next to each other texting. Yep.
So I do want to let everybody know, I do not recommend eating leftover Chipotle for breakfast. It's just not a good. Just throwing that out there.
Hey, I forgot to eat this morning, and I was getting hungry, so I just had some crackers that have been sitting up here for I don't know how long, and they were very stale. So
I think those go down better than the leftover Chipotle. I'm just saying.
Was the package still see? Hey, my son just sent me a message. I actually have to answer it because I told him I would. Brandon Williams says Sutton or Deontay.
Sutton
for me.
I'm messaging my son, so go ahead, Justin.
That's funny. Justin was messaging your son as well.
That's fine. A little weird, but cool. 10-year-old boys, I didn't know.
Yeah, I'm a school teacher. I can get away with it.
That's what most school teachers think that I see when they get arrested.
I'm gonna go Deontay Johnson. I'm going to go Deontay Johnson here, and mostly because I want to hurry up and change the subject. I'm feeling uncomfortable. But Deontay Johnson, it's PPR, so that does weigh into it for me. Sutton may have the higher touchdown potential, but I see the Steelers finally getting to sling the rock a little bit around. Hopefully, I mean, it's going to be the dump-off guys mostly, but in this situation, you guys know I'm not a big Sutton guy, so – I think this one's close. I'm going to lean Deontay.
All right, and I think I'm going to go with Sutton, touchdown upside, Deontay. I mean, we all saw that play, right? He didn't even try play last week for Deontay Johnson. Who all saw that? Everybody?
Yeah,
everybody's seen it.
That's just bad football. Like, I can't imagine.
We don't know what he was thinking.
We absolutely know what he was thinking. I'm not part of this play. I'm not doing anything. And I almost used one of our cusses, but I didn't. My son with another smiley face, and then YYC. And I think this might be the first time I've seen the question from YYC. So if it's not, I apologize that I forgot. But if it is, welcome this morning, YYC. Flex, Javonte Williams, Chase, or Singletary. George, go ahead.
I'm with Devin Singletary. Give me the devil here. It's hard to say don't start Jamar Chase. I absolutely get that. And it's not that I don't like Chase, the talent. I don't like his quarterback and his lack of talent. Dameon Pierce returned from his 3-game absence with an ankle injury in Week 12 against Jacksonville, but he only played 18% of the snaps. Singletary still dominated the snaps. He was the lead running back. He scored at least 13.2 PPR points for the 3rd game in a row. He also had 6 catches for 54 yards on 7 targets against the Jaguars. So you kind of hope that his work in the passing game continues, especially having some banged up wide receivers. They're missing their starting tight end. So Houston got some issues going on. So hopefully they continue to involve Singletary in the receiving game. The Broncos allowed the most fantasy. The Broncos defense allows the most fantasy points to opposing running backs. 4 running backs in the past 3 games. 4 running backs, 3 games. It matches. It checks out. Have scored at least 12 PPR points. And Singletary does have top 20 upside in all formats this week. It's sad to say sit Chase, but I'm going with the Devil Singletary.
Pete?
Yep, I'll agree with that completely. Singletary, Chase just doesn't have a good quarterback to throw to him, and Singletary's been really good this season, and it's only 5 PPR, so it takes a Singletary.
And Justin.
I'm going against the grain here. So I want to start Chase as well, and for all the same reasons I can't, but I'm going to go Javonte, and here's my reasoning. So Javonte Williams has been one of these guys this season that's had some really bad luck on the rushing end. His team started off really bad at the start of the season, and that never bodes well for your running game if you're in a negative game script early and often. So I'm throwing out the first third of the season for him. And then after that, he's been playing either really tough defenses or at least these bend, don't break defenses that I like to stream when I'm looking at my team defenses, the teams that might give up a lot of yards, but they're not going to give up a lot of touchdowns. He's had 150 rushing attempts this season. 150. You know how many rushing touchdowns he's had? 0, not a single one. And that regression has got to come back in his favor. And this week he gets Houston. It's finally one of those defenses that's not really bend but don't break, but also not really good. So like they have drives where they give up big chunks of yards and they give up the touchdowns. So I feel like this is a real opportunity for Javonte to get into the end zone. I'm calling for Javonte to have 2 touchdowns today. I'm a huge Javonte Williams guy this week. So I'm gonna go with Javonte in this one.
You know what's funny is you don't often hear this guy doesn't have touchdowns as a positive when going between 2 players.
Yeah, it's all because of just the scenario, the way it's all fallen out. But yeah, that is pretty funny. Yeah. This guy sucks.
You know,
I'm going with him.
Yeah, exactly. Give me the guy that hasn't scored at all. Man, I have them basically back to back in my rankings. I do have Singletary 1 spot higher than Javonte this week. So Justin convinced me with this guy sucks argument, but I am still going to stick with my rankings. I'm going to go with Singletary over Javonte, but it's real close. And I wouldn't be surprised if Javonte has a good game, but he also has Pirine, who's played better as of late, and then McLaughlin, who's kind of taken a step back but looked good in spots to contend with. So at any given moment, one of those 2 guys could vulture one of the touchdowns, whereas I think Pierce has been just bad. And maybe he gets a higher snap percentage because it's his second game back from injury. But, you know, they've seen success with Singletary on the field, so I don't know that they go away from it. And that's the differentiating factor for me. So it's 3 of us for Singletary, 1 for Javonte, but both good options. And I can't believe we had this question and none of us chose Jamar Chase. It's just where we are in this fantasy season. It's absolutely insane. Let's see. Getting past my son talked about, let's see, Will's there saying, ha, ha, ha. We've got Steven Varner saying, Royce Freeman versus Cleveland or Dearness Johnson versus Cincinnati at flex. Frankenstein scoring. I'm going to say Dearness Johnson because he's been getting some run, spelling Travis Etienne, and he actually has looked pretty good when he's been on the field. So I'm going to say Dearness Johnson here. Justin, you made a face.
Well, Royce Freeman did have 13 carries last week, which is not something I knew. I knew he had the touchdown. I knew he had about 70 yards, but the 13 carries is intriguing. there for the Rams. I think I might lean towards Royce Freeman. The downside is they're playing Cleveland, right? So where they are 12th against running backs this season, they also tend to have a really strong defense. Now, if the Rams defense can play better than what we anticipate that they usually do, and they might going up against the law firm of Dorian Thompson Robinson, then they oh wait, no, I forgot. No, Joe Flacco. They're going up against Joe Flacco. I mean, there is a chance that they can keep the game close and keep that neutral game script and maybe even a positive game script if Stafford comes out playing like Stafford can. Then Royce Freeman could heavily be involved. So that's enough of a narrative. I think I'm going to give the edge to Royce Freeman, but I will say that I did pick up D'Ernest Johnson just because he's playing Monday night. So I don't know what your situation is, Steve Varner. But for me, I like to pick up a guy at the position I'm going to steal that week that's playing Monday night and kind of keep him rostered and then see how the games go throughout the week. And if it starts to look like I'm pretty heavily favored and I might win, I'm going to throw in D'Ernest Johnston because I think he's a guy that could still score some points. And I could drop him to pick up my running back later. So if running backs look what you're looking to steal, then because it's Frank, I might lean toward Johnson. But in a vacuum, if I need to win, I need points, I'm going to go with Freeman this week.
All right, George.
I'm going D'Ernest Johnson, and I don't think Steve is in the situation where he's looking to start one of these guys to steal play. I think he's in the same situation I am in the Frankenstein, where these are the best options he's got at running back at this point in the season, because our team has just been decimated by steals and trades and all that. So I'm going. Yep, I'm going D'Ernest Johnson here. I'm terrified of running back versus Cleveland, who has been an absolute shutdown, lockdown stud of a defense all year long.
And Pete.
Yeah, I'm going to go D'Ernest Johnson on this one as well. And I hope he's not in my division. I'm probably playing the guy, and I don't even know
it. Eli says, puppies.
Yeah, you're welcome, buddy.
Matt says, Cup or Puka in a PPR?
Cup.
Yeah, I'm going to say Cup.
This is so difficult. Because Cup has been playing just terribly the last few weeks. I mean, just really, really bad. I'm going to go Puka. Yeah, I'm going Puka.
Justin?
I have to go Cup. I mean, I still have to go Cup. The injury was concerning to me, but it looked like his cuts were still there last week. Like it looked like he didn't have a bad game because of the injury. I think he had a bad game because of the defense they went up against. So, I'm still gonna stick with Cup. I think his injury is fine. And update: Red Rum is Steve Varner, so you are not playing against him this week.
Okay,
he's going up against the Monster Mashers.
Yeah, Cooper Kupp has scored 6.9 PPR points or less in 5 games in a row. He's still not healthy about the ankle, Justin. He injured it week 11. He was still limping around week 12. I get, the name value of Cooper Kupp is there, but man, I've got Cooper Kupp in so many leagues, and he's absolutely. I've been playing him based upon name value, and that's the only reason why. If I actually stopped named and looked at his production the last 5 weeks, there's no way I could start that guy.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's definitely a tough decision. But I got another piece of advice for Steve Varner. I'm going to take it a step further now that I'm looking at your Frank roster. The guy that you're going to drop to get this player is your Slimer Ghostbuster card. You didn't have to use it all season. Now we're at the point your opponent this week, it's too late for him to use his Leprechaun against you. So don't drop any of those other guys. I know you're trying to debate on which running back to drop right now to get Johnson. So just drop Slimer. You don't need him anymore.
All right. Bruce says, I need a running back too and a flex out of this group. Jerome Ford, Achan, Connors, Trey McBride, and T. Higgins. Everybody's staring at it. Everybody's staring at it. Running back 2. So let's start running back 2. Jerome Ford, Achan, or Connors. I think I want Jerome Ford. Anybody disagree with Jerome Ford?
Nope.
George is disagreeing. No, not disagreeing.
No, I'm agreeing. No,
okay.
Ford has scored exactly 11.9 PPR points in 3 games in a row. He's hit 11.1 PPR points in 6 of his past 7. He's as consistent as you're going to get at the running back position. 22nd against opposing running backs. Let's go with Jerome Ford here. I told you I'm not high on Devon Achane this week because I don't think they're going to use him very much at all. I think he's going to be the 3rd running back on this team right now coming back from injury. They don't need him to beat Washington.
All right, and then Justin, go ahead. You had your finger up.
Yeah, because I was gonna disagree and go James Conner, but I don't know. I keep going back and forth with it, so I'm cool with Ford.
I could put Connors in my flex.
All right, and then Pete.
Yeah,
running back.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, and then flex. So you're George. You're putting Connor in your flex.
Yeah.
Everybody putting Connor in their flex.
Yeah, I think so.
Better matchup.
Yeah, it's still tough to bench Trey McBride, but yeah, I think I'd rather have the running back here.
All right.
Revenge game too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, as far as that goes, yeah.
Then yeah, I feel a lot better about me going against Connor now. Thanks, George. Thanks. It's awesome.
You're welcome. That's what I'm here for.
Because we still got
Bobby Hams says Jeff Wilson or Antonio Gibson and running back 2 as a half PPR. James Cook is in a bye, and Jonathan Taylor is dead to me. So Jeff Wilson or Antonio Gibson. George, I'm going with you first.
I'm going Antonio Gibson. I expect the Commanders to be down. But I talked earlier about how I didn't like Robinson based on the matchup because of how good the Dolphins are against the running backs. But in a half point or PPR, I like Antonio Gibson. They're going to be down. They're going to be chasing points. When they're chasing points, Antonio Gibson's on the field, and he's used quite heavily. So I'm going to go with Antonio Gibson.
Yep, I agree with Antonio Gibson.
Can I say that I agree wholeheartedly with George without it being on record?
You can
Absolutely.
Wait.
Okay.
Say that again.
I agree. I'm not going to say it. Yeah, I also like Gibson.
I'm going to say Gibson as well. So there we go. Bobby Ham also asks, Romeo Dubs or Curtis Samuel full PPR? I'm going to go Pete first.
Romeo Dubs. I know they're playing Kansas City. Curtis Samuel's just coming back. Commanders got a real tough matchup against the Dolphins.
George, I know you were big on Samuel. Does that extend past Dubs?
No, delete past Dubs. Yes, I'm going to go Curtis Samuel here.
Justin?
Man, I think they're both equally as inconsistent, and I don't want either of them just as much as the other. But due to the upside, I think I'm going to go with Dubs. I think if I have to choose one, I'm going to go with Dubs.
Man, I was going to say Curtis Samuel.
There you go. Then it's 3-1. I feel good.
No, it's 2-2.
Oh, Pete, did you go Dubs?
Yeah.
Oh, shoot. Okay, well, we're 2-2 then. My bad.
Well, and then also Romeo is also an option. T. Higgins is also an option.
That's also another very equal option.
Yeah, it doesn't change it for me.
Me either.
It just muddies it more.
Sorry, Bobby. We're gonna be split on this one because Like, I think Dubs has a better touchdown opportunity, but I think Curtis Samuel is a better PPR play. So,
Good point.
yeah, there you go. Black Body Absorber wants to know if he can message me. I mean, I don't know. Are you my son?
He has
He
messaged
can message
me,
you on
so-
Gilded.
Yeah, he
He
has
can message
messaged
you on
me,
Gilded.
so-
Absolutely, absolutely. It's either that or you're my son, and we can go back and forth. This one, sit one in a PPR, sit one, and I think I know which one. But Puka, Tank Dell, Hopkins, and Amari Cooper, and I think it's Cooper. Does everybody agree? Cooper
Yeah.
with Flacco.
Yeah.
He's been bad since he's only been good with Watson on the field this year. Now Flacco may be better than what they've been putting out, PJ Walker and then the law firm, but I have to see it with Flacco before I'm willing to start him over Hopkins, Tank Dell, and Puka this week.
Yep.
Let's see. Get Justin and George out of here. I mean,
Oh, dang.
There we go.
Eli asks and he receives. Let's see. And we'll add. Whoop. I don't know. I can't add Justin back. He's a black screen now. That's okay.
You broke him.
Logan Thomas or Taysom Hill in half PPR. I think we're all going to say Taysom Hill, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's see. We've got. Oh, here's a follow-up from the question we had earlier. I have Kansas City and Cleveland defense. Baltimore got dropped. Would you pick up Baltimore and drop one of the above? All contending teams, but are streaming defenses. Oh, so all contending teams, but one are streaming defenses. Yeah, you have to pay. If you have priority, I would get Baltimore. Keep them keep away.
Which if he picks up Baltimore, which one of those two defenses are you dropping?
I'm dropping Kansas City.
Yeah, I probably do, but I'm going to look at their schedule. Just give me a second.
That's what I'm doing right now. So the Chiefs, the rest of the season, have the Packers, the Bills, the Patriots, the Raiders, the Bengals. So they've got a pretty favorable playoff schedule. That's why he has the Chiefs to begin with. So back to his original question, though, it wasn't do I drop one of these other defenses? It was, do I drop one of those handcuff running backs? So now we need to know who those handcuff running backs were to know, because I kind of like the thought of holding all three of these defenses if all the other contenders are streaming and you're solidly into the playoffs. I do kind of like the thought of blocking your opponents, because it is Baltimore and Cleveland, top notch. Kansas City is a defense you don't want starting against you in the playoffs. So, yeah, you just got to hope that your running backs stay healthy.
And, boys, championship week, Cleveland is playing the Jets.
Oh.
I mean, potentially Tim Boyle. It's either Tim Boyle, Trevor Siemian, or Zach Wilson in the championship game against a good defense.
It might be Aaron Rodgers by then, right?
I know, right? You seen that?
Look, I hope it's the statue Aaron Rodgers who wants to make it all about himself. I was listening to some podcasts like Aaron Rodgers is making it all about him. He is not starting a game this year. He's not. He got to hedge it. He got to hedge it by saying, "Oh, well, if New York's in contention, well, that's the easiest hedge in the world. They're not going to be."
Yeah.
So, but they're saying he's putting 70% weight on treadmill and going at like 50% speed, and it's like, guys that do that are like months away from being able to come back and play. So it's Aaron Rodgers making the whole game about Aaron Rodgers and potentially trying to save Robert Saleh's job. But all right, guys, start one PPR: Hollywood, Swift, Najee, or Rice. I'll take it first. I'm gonna say Najee against the Arizona Cardinals, because the Cardinals are god awful against the run, and Najee Smith has been playing way better as of late. Swift is going up against the 49ers. Hollywood's been awful as of late, and Rice played better last week, but you never know if he's going to be the wide receiver. So for me, it's Najee. Oh, go ahead.
Well,
Justin.
sorry. As a supervisor at work, sometimes when you have an employee that's been slacking and kind of not doing the job they're supposed to do, then sometimes you start showing a little bit more attention to their potential replacement, and then all of a sudden you start getting work out of them. That's kind of the comparison I'm getting with Warren and Najee here. Najee seems to have found a gear that we haven't seen from him in a while. So I think that Najee kind of got the hint here. He got the warning from Tomlin, and then not only that, but because of the fact that they're able to split carries a lot more, it's Najee's seeing a lot less of those 9 in the box, 8 in the box on defense. Because Warren offers that versatility of catching the ball out of the backfield and that sort of thing. So that's been helpful as well to help free up Najee. So I agree with you. I'm going to go with Najee as well.
Pete.
No, I'm going to go Rice on this one. I know what you guys are saying and all that with Warren and Najee, but I think this is going to be the time where Rice picks it up and starts to go be that go-to guy for Mahomes and gets a lot of receptions.
I can say if he does it 2 weeks in a row, I'll start picking him much more often. But we haven't seen it.
Right.
We haven't seen the same wide receiver do it 2 weeks in a row for them all season. George, what do you think?
Yeah, so for me, it's Najee as well. He started the year out really, really bad. I love Justin's analogy of, hey, let me show you what your replacement can do to get him motivated. And it seems to have worked. Harris has had at least 15 points in 4 of his past 6 games. And he's got a huge opportunity here against the Arizona Cardinals, who literally just gave up 200 total yards and a couple of touchdowns to Kyren Williams. Last week they gave 143 rushing yards and 6 catches for 61 yards and 2 touchdowns on 6 targets to Kyren Williams. And he wasn't alone because Royce Freeman had 13 carries for 77 yards and a touchdowns against the same Arizona defense in the same game. It's really, really bad run defense there in Arizona. Start both of those Steeler running backs.
And to be fair, to Pete's point, like I agree with you wholeheartedly about Rice. I don't think that his inconsistency is his fault. I think it's more to the point of Pat Mahomes understanding his team and who to target on certain games, and he has the ability to throw to just about anybody to help spread it out, which makes them even more difficult to go up against in the playoffs, which is what really matters. And that's what Pat Mahomes plays for, are Super Bowl championships, not regular season wins. So I do agree with everything you said about Rice, and I also want to point out that that's a phenomenal looking hat right there. I really appreciate that hat that you're wearing right there.
Yeah, love it.
I am gonna throw out here also with Najee is maybe Najee's just a second half of the football season guy, because remember last year, and part of it was the injury last year, but he was awful in the first half of the season last year and turned around and won people fantasy championships. And it may just be that Najee comes on strong or has a body that's built for a long season, whereas other guys start wearing down as the season goes on. But Najee seems to get better as the season progresses. So he's looked good. So in Frankenstank, Stephen Varner is also throwing out, with players on bye or injured in Frankenstank, Noah Brown versus Denver or Dearness Johnson versus Cincinnati. I'm going to throw out Noah Brown. So their wide receiver options look phenomenal when anybody on that team is out, that tight end's out. So I'm going Noah Brown. George's agreement. I saw Justin nod. Pete, you agree too? Yep. All right. And then Steve says, great catch on dropping Slimer. And if you guys don't know about Slimer, if you don't know what we're talking about, you need to get in Frankenstank next year. It's our listener league. It's a giant mess of rules. Like, there's a bunch of rules, but it's the first league I've ever been in when there was like a multi-page PDF of rules that you get when you join. But it is an incredible league with a whole lot of fun. and there's all kinds of cool stuff like monster cards, and there's actually physical monster cards that go with them if you wanted to buy them.
We're potentially going to be expanding that league to up to 150 contestants next year. So it's a multi copy leagues for those of you that are wondering. So we have plenty of spots to fill. It's the only league where you're going to see Freddy Krueger get drafted before Pat Mahomes.
My math is way off, but like 150 doesn't seem divisible by 12.
I said up to 150 just so that I could cover myself in that aspect.
Aren't you a teacher?
But also, you don't know of some other changes we have coming up that could actually make that work.
All right. Will T2T says Collins, Nico Collins, Rice, Higgins, flex, redraft, full PPR, non-super flex. I'm not sure why the non-super flex matters, but throw it out there. You be you. I'm saying Nico Collins. George?
Yeah. Nico Collins until Nico Collins realizes he's Nico Collins.
Yeah.
Let's see. My teams are dying, guys. I went from first to third with one loss. I mean, that happens. That happens. Let's see. Noah Brown said, Noah Brown too risky to start in first week back over D-Hop, right? I think I roll with D-Hop.
I roll with D-Hop.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
I just had to put that in there.
That's what you get for kicking out Dad. Okay. I'm just a guest, so they can kick me out anytime they want. I'm cool with it.
Your mom, we should never kick mom out.
Black Body Absorber says, I'm in on Gilded. Jason, my apologies. No apologies needed, man. It's all good. We were joking around.
Okay, Mark, we're not going to show the next one. Oh, never mind. We are. We try not to show those comments.
Michigan, Washington, Texas, Alabama. I guess they officially left FSU out.
Yep.
As they should have. I was right.
I absolutely hate that Alabama is in it.
They don't deserve it. I'm sorry. It's the first time they've ever left a team in the Power 5 conference out that went undefeated. I'm sorry. It's never happened
Power
before.
5 anymore?
Yeah. The ACC? Absolutely, that's a Power 5 conference.
Didn't most of their best teams besides FSU leave? I don't know. I don't follow college enough to say anything other than the fact that I know who's been playing better as of late. And look, guys, we are caught up on questions, which is good. Mark apologized for cussing.
You're good, Mark. That's on us, not you.
Well,
you do you.
I mean, so I don't think does YouTube actually read the cusses?
I don't believe so. And usually that's something that we're going to be talking about at the meeting tonight as well, for those of you that are coming to our meeting. But I think they mostly just monitor like the first 30 seconds, the last 30 seconds when it comes to comments and music for the most part. But yeah, we're good. It's Mark too. I wouldn't even care.
I mean, the thing is none of us read it. And then, it was only up there on the screen real quick, and it would have been the first of the show, so we're more than covered.
No, if they catch it now, it's because they've noticed that we've been talking about it for the last 45 seconds, and they're like, "Oh, wait a minute, what are they talking about?" Those bots, they're smart bots.
I don't know that they're that smart. They probably would have put FSU in. Not that smart. Anyway, so I do want to mention George and I will be off next week. We will be doing our annual Toys for Tots shopping. We raised over $4,000 this year for Toys for Tots, and we're going to have the privilege of shopping with Fantasy Cares as well, who will be bringing another $2,500 to the table to shop for Brevard County Toys for Tots. So George and I will be off next week, but we're going to have some great fill-ins, especially Pete. I'm not sure if Justin was going to be here next week, but I know the team's.
Yeah, I'll be on next week.
Yeah, so I know the team was looking to cover. I think Coach at one point had mentioned his soccer coaching would be over and he might be able to cover. So like I said, we'll find valuable replacements. I mean, they can't be as good as me and George, but they'll still do what they can. So I do want to thank everybody for watching this week and asking all the questions. We couldn't do this without you guys doing what you do. I'd like to say thank you to my son for being on here every week and giving us something to laugh about every single week. I love your questions, buddy, and I can't wait to go see you. Also, get off your iPad. Time's up. And then I do want to say,
I love how the end of the show.
I do want to mention. Oh yeah, we need the viewer all the way to the end. And then I want to mention, you guys should, if you're not already in our Gilded chat, you should be in our Gilded chat because we have over 200 people talking about football at any given time. Okay, well that's fine. We'll message about that later, buddy. Since we don't talk apparently. We have over 200 people in our Gilded chat at any given time talking about football. It's an absolute joy. You can get all kinds of betting information from DJ Prue, who gives the absolute best bets in the business in there. We talk about the games, we talk about college. I'm sure we're going to be talking about college a lot here soon. And then and so do that. Also, patreon.com/toiletstitles, because again, we have a tier for every budget and we're doing tons of giveaways. We do our waiver wire notes. We have all kinds of stuff at every different level. So patreon.com/toiletstitles. And then I'm going to let Justin pump up joinrival.com/titletribe before we close this out. So go ahead.
Yeah, I've had it right here under my ugly chin this entire time. Joinrival.com/titletribe. This is the newest evolution of fantasy sports betting. It's not fantasy sports betting like you're going to see anywhere else. So as a for instance, my wife this week in one of her rival leagues is going up against somebody, and I think she's going to win. And so I bet on her to beat some other guy. I'm not even involved in the game. So one of them could have an injury and swap out a player last minute I don't even know about, and it could affect my bet. It is what it is, but it's just one of those crazy ways that you can bet on Rival that you can't bet on any other platform. So your first deposit of up to $200 will be matched, plus an additional $25 just for using that link. Joinrival.com/titletribe.
And last thing I want to mention, because before I'll be on here again, my son has his 11th birthday. December 8th is my son's 11th birthday.
Hey, all right.
So happy birthday. Happy early birthday, Eli. I love you. And we will message here shortly. For everybody else, for Pete, for Justin, for George, thank you guys for watching. And we will see you next week.
Thank you.